Righto, we are all good to go. We've set up a flight at Innsbruck Airport. There is no snow on the ground in reality, the snow starts about there, actually. This is all white, this is all green from here down. So, runway wise, we're going to select 08 for departure. We're going to fly a visual departure via Brenner, which is basically this valley here. Normally you would fly out in this direction, do a big right turn or IFR, but obviously conditions permit VFR departure, so we'll be doing that today. At Genoa, we'll be flying a visual circle to land approach at runway 10. Runway 10 is surrounded by mountains. There's no instrument approach into that. There's no RNAV either, so it's a down the ILS for the other runway and then break off and turn around at the end. Flight time is 15 minutes, 50. We're going to be cruising at flight level 290, so 29,000 feet. Let's just quickly check there's nothing for Innsbruck. So that's the route there, bit of a crazy route, but we'll be diverting to Milan Linate if anything goes wrong. I might take a direct at this point here because that little dogleg there makes no sense. Let's have a quick look. Vertical profile, everything seems fine. Innsbruck, wind is okay. Light rain. I'd call that nonsense considering out my window is absolutely blue skies. Crane erected, crane erected, crane erected. So this is all of the cranes in the things. No more than 1 hour is permitted on the ground here. Genoa. That's March 11th to March 20th. Airport closed due to work in progress. Well, we'll be ignoring that. The airport is open in my sim, so that's what's going to be happening. Precision approach path indicator PAPI runway 28 is unserviceable. Great. So we won't be using runway 28. Anyway, we're now ready for departure. At Innsbruck, when the aircraft apron is not completely full, they don't actually use a pushback for this, so I'm going to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to start up my APU now. And set that there. It's going to be set as well, set to Tikas Tara, and I'm going to set 2000, which is actually an oceanic score, but oh well. Let me just quickly check I've got VATSIM loaded. So VATSIM flight plan pre-filed, and no, that's not my call sign. Oh Jesus! Edit flight, flight number. Let's go for 56 Golf. Generate flight. Yes. I'm gonna check that now. End flight there. Review. Back. Map. Plan a flight. Just getting the flight plan all set up properly with the call sign because it had Alpine Lima Oscar Whiskey India, which is basically just phonetics for Innsbruck. So obviously that's not the call sign. So EJU 56 Golf Airbus A20N. Fetch the flight plan and file. There we go. So that's now all set up. We're now connected to the VATSIM network. And now hopefully, now there's a chap next to me, so we might turn around to the left this time. All the bags are in already, we've already boarded the plane, so. Yeah, we'll spin around to the right, to the left, and then go around that way. There's still loads of space over here. What is going on with this lot? Good, that's enough of that. Catering's leaving now. The APU started up, we could see that because there's a shimmer here. Right, so that's all set up now. Let's put the beacon light on.
Flight attendants, armed doors, and cross-check.
Go away, baggage truck. Well, that's not going away. This needs to get out of the way as well. Let's check there's no ATC online. There isn't.
Alone to take the information card in your seat back pocket. To fasten your seatbelt, insert the flat
Start up engine 2. You're in the way, I've asked you to leave, and you're still there. And now it's going, finally. So we might end up going through this because all of this ground clutter really should go a bit further away from the aircraft. In real life they would do that for sure. So hopefully now this door will close. There we go. We're on 40% N1. I'm starting up engine 2 now. It's the door locked. You can hear the cabin crew sound disappears then. Let's set initial 16,000. Pretty typical out of Innsbruck, as it's the minimum safe altitude anyways, 13,000 feet, so you need to be a bit above that obviously. Now the departure is programmed in here. We're more or less going to ignore that and just basically fly visually, maintaining a good separation from the mountains, and then use the valley to do that. Okay, we got engine 1 and engine 2 is just coming available now. Give it another 5 or 6 seconds. Innsbruck traffic Alpine 56 Golf, gonna taxi to 08, departure visual to the south. Now the wind has been prevailing from the east for the last few days at Innsbruck, so I would be surprised if that is still the case now. As you can see with the things here, the wind is kind of coming from the south-southwest, so it doesn't really make a difference which runway you use. It's always a little bit of a crosswind, but it's very calm at the moment. Okay, we've got both air available, so I'm going to give it a bit of thrust and turn it directly to the left, and we're basically just going to ignore the fact that this is a bunch of equipment here, because in reality that would all go away very quickly, so ignore the fact that the stairs are about to go through the aircraft. Break the plane to pieces, but in reality this is what happens, so except breaking the plane to pieces, that doesn't happen. Okay, it's going to all go away now. 2:30, so we should be arriving by 3:30, roughly, European time. Let's set auto brakes to max, and flaps need to be set 2 for takeoff. We're going to be using full toga, which should give us a very good rate of climb at the weight we're at. Quite a lot, not a lot of fuel on board because we are only flying an hour away. Kutai Valley here, Axamalitsum, which will be on our right as we depart, and as we fly through the Brenner Valley, you'll see that there too. On the right hand side, Uni, where I'm going to actually have to go this afternoon, which I'm not looking forward to. That's the building I'll be roughly in, which is quite crazy really. That's the astronomy observatory at the top there. Okay. Looking good for departure. Let's check the cabin. On the takeoff config. There we go, everything's good to go. Aircraft set up properly. Just gonna look around and see if I see any lights in the sky. No lights to the east, and I can't see anything to the west. Just a quick check though on the VATSIM map. Obviously driving off the road as I try and do that. I already entered the runway, so at this point I might as well just carry on. So VATSIM map zooming all the way in on Innsbruck. There is one aircraft overflying on the way to Istanbul, so he's going to be very high up, not going to be a factor at all. Innsbruck traffic, Alpine 56 Golf lining up, runway 08 via backtrack. Line up and backtrack. And at this point they tend to get a bit of a move on. It's not so clever to be spending too much time on any runway if you can avoid it. So in terms of charts, there are no charts for this departure that I'm going to do today. It is basically just visual, which means making up as we go along, maintaining visual separation from obstacles, the ground and clouds. Oh, there flies a Eurofighter near me. Okay, let's spin it around. Okay, takeoff run available 2,000 meters. Should be adequate. Now facing the city of Innsbruck. Okay, this is something they actually do. Set the brakes. Spool up halfway. I'm just holding the toe brakes.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Power, release the brakes. Let's speed building. The departure is going to be all sort of kind of 1,000 feet above ground, right turn. Above 3,700 over that plateau V1, rotate. Positive climb, gear up. 2,100 already. Now the valley we're aiming for is on the right there, so we're going to just basically fly this now visually. Keep climbing, we've got 3,000 feet per minute, 2,800, 2,900, 3,000. 3,700 is minimum safe for the Brenner Valley, so at least for the plateau here, but we're going to be constantly climbing the whole time, so I'm going to actually turn right now. On the right there you can see the Bergis Sprungschanze ski jump. That is currently lit up in the flag of Ukraine colours, so yellow and blue. Still climbing now above 4,200, so the safe altitude is absolutely fine. And this basically saves us doing the entire departure route. We're coming now over the Brenner Motorway, which is a very massive land bridge basically all the way to Innsbruck, to Brenner. In Italy you can see there the Europa Bridge, which is a massive bridge, which has probably accounted for most of the cost of using that motorway. It's about 20 euros to go to Italy on it. Straight ahead now we've got Serles, which is a mountain. Hopefully that's obvious that there are mountains here. That's the one on head in front of the nose on the left, and on the right hand side we've got the Nockspitze, Ampferstein and Bergsteigenspitze. This is the Stubai Valley here, so that's going to have a few glaciers at the back hopefully. Remind me to put the packs back on. Still climbing nicely, 3,000 feet per minute. We're overhead in, but we're actually going to use the valley now as a visual reference rather than following the flight plan, because you can see that line there is basically going to take us directly into the north face of Serles, which is not a good idea. Hopefully it's obvious why. On the left here we've got Takeoff. There's actually a radar station there and a massive broadcasting tower. This is the ski lift, and then this is the Litzumov Silatal, and then Navis Valley as well. I've done a ski tour down that mountain there, the Kreuzung. Okay, we've actually gone above 8,000 now, so we're reducing now to a D10 climb. Frontal climb. Still flying it by hand, it's very smooth today. We're above 10,000 very shortly, so I'm going to turn off those landing lights already. There we go. And basically once I get above 12,000, that is when I'm safely above all of these mountains. That's when I can actually turn right onto resume navigation to wherever it is I want to go. So, ski area here. This is Schlick. Top secret, nobody's supposed to know about that. It's actually a wonderful ski area which no one knows about if they're not from Innsbruck. And the glacier of Stubai at the back. You can see those three there. This is Habicht, which is until I was actually recently thought the tallest mountain in Tyrol, because it's got quite a good prominence to all over the mountains. But when they started measuring mountains properly, they realised actually it's not. It's still a very nice one. And then somewhere over the back we should have the Zuckerhügel, which is literally a sugar loaf, because it looks like a sugar loaf. Somewhere over there. Will not be properly rendered. Okay, there is 11,300. Switch over to standard altimeter, and once we reach flight level 120, turn right onto the course to Brenner Maybe direct to Ekpis after this point. That would be nice. Can sort of keep us slightly further to the left of these mountains here. This. Looks like that will now work, so we're going to do that. See, there's no mountains that are going to be within dangerous range of us now. We're just flying over the Bergealm ski area. I don't know if you're there. On the right, Schnitztal. I hope it's Schnitztal, otherwise I'm wrong. That's the Orbenburger See, which is a little lake with a chapel on it. It's a very nice place. This is the Sattelberg ski area. It's actually only a ski touring area now. All of the lifts have been decommissioned, but you can still use it as a nice ski tour. This is again the bridge that I was talking about. It's basically a bridge all the way into Italy, so it's a very, very expensive engineering project actually. Climbing up over the mountains, doing what we're supposed to be doing, hopefully. Right, there we go. I can now reduce flaps. Flaps 2. Flaps 1 plus F, so F will come in on its own when we hit the buffer there. A little bit of turbulence over the mountains now. That's the buffer. I'm just going to reduce it completely and we're going to accelerate all the way up to our cruising speed. Have a quick look at the flight plan. Right, LIMJ arrival. We're going to use the VOR Zulu approach to 2A. I think it's going to be Lusel arrival. There is no Lusel arrival, so let me just quickly check what we actually programmed in our... Yeah, Lusel 2 Bravo we're looking for. That's not good. Because the airport's closed, they just deleted all the arrival route. That's the ILS-28Z. Lusel. Come on, give me Lusel. No Lusel. Okay, that's fine. We'll find another way. LIMJ arrival. Let's do Honor A. Where's that? That's interesting. I'm going to actually go onto the ChartFox website and share that with you. There we go. So this is the charts for Genoa. There is also an RNAV approach that I've got here, but basically we're going to follow the ILS approach. Have a look at star, link routes and star. So we are coming from Lusil, which is where? Picot, Linate, Limba, Louisville, 1 Bravo goes direct to Trezor and then Picot. So Picot, 3 Foxtrot, I would imagine. 16,000, I'm going to go up to 29,000. That should be a loser arrival, but pick up, probably a loser transition. Picot, 3 Foxtrot, where are you? What other options are there? 2A, 1D. Yeah, let's do 2A. There's one. Oh dear, there we go, click that. Via. Doesn't matter, insert. Transition, loser. I guess it's a loser transition to a pick up arrival. Insert that now. It's quite a long runway, 2,900 metres. About 900 metres longer than Innsbruck. Sorry, I think I've just left that whole thing up there. So we're basically going to be flying a loser transition, dunk to Picot, and then Picot something something. That should get us to Genoa, Genova VOR. And from that point we do our initial approach, which will take us down to the runway via the ILS, which I'm going to switch that to localizer. We're currently selected to ILS. I want to do localizer VOR 28Z. The reason I want to use a localizer is because I don't need the descent profile of an ILS. It's kind of tricky to disengage that descent mode, so Picot to Delta, why not, same thing. Insert, Louisville. Insert, there we go, Louisville, TZO, Picot. Intercept, and then a bit of a right turn here, and that's where we've got our first 6,500 at that point there. So I need to program waypoint as a constraint, so Sierra Echo 27 Bravo. So that's 158 miles, so you're going to be descending relatively quickly anyway. It's a very short flight in this case, so synchronizing to there. And if I set 6,500, that's going to be 48 miles, so give it probably 60 miles to descend. So we are going to make it to our cruise now, which is going to be a very parabolic flight, which is what one wants, to be honest. Flying over the Citroën Alps. So I think this is Bolzano underneath us here. That's the Bolzano airport, another more extreme approach. So there's a lot of mountains here. So the ILS here is going to be quite okay, but the circling approach is sketchy because these mountains are really tall compared to the lie of the airfield. This is the Sizer Alm here. Famous picture of the Dolomites that you might have seen if you look at Instagram on tour. Back here we've got Murano, very pretty city. Ortler, back there, the highest mountain in Central, I think. 3,900 meters. It's got a lovely ski area underneath it. Solden. Not Solden, Solden. The Italian version. Which is a bit mad, really. So turning right now, coming up here, this is the, hopefully, Garda Sea. Lake Garda. But might not be as well. Oh, we're rendering in some, deleting the rivers. Some of the snow's rendering ways. Interesting how that's happening. I'm enjoying it though, it's good. Thank you, finally. The rivers have frozen over here. They're all actually green right now. But, alas. So back to the arc there. So we've got 147 miles to that waypoint, and we need 60 miles to descend at our current altitude, so we're just going to cruise it over now. Have I just pointed out a bunch of stuff? This is really annoying, this window capture, because it doesn't just go smaller. Like if I just downsize it, it stays there. So that's what's really bugging me. So that's going to become invisible now. The charts we've seen, basically it's going to be a straight approach. We've got Lake Garda here. So that means Arco is here where you can go climbing. And Bolzano, which I mentioned, is this city over here with the airport underneath the tailwing. Crazy approaches into there. Got some lakes kind of half rendering in, half rendering out. See the snow sort of struggling to represent itself properly. And Moran back here, which I did also say as well, but that might be ruined by the fact that I had this charts all up instead. And the order is this one, as I mentioned. That's where the ski area of the Passo del Stelvio is to be found. It's a ski area that only opens in the summer, which is bizarre. Probably let you all go around and have a toilet break. Passengers go toilet. You've got 500 feet until the top of climb. And now we've got 70 miles before descent, so that's going to give us another 60 miles of flight time at this altitude. So very much parabolic in many senses, basically straight up, straight down. But we're spending as much time as we can at more efficient altitudes. A little bit bumpy over the mountains, as you can see, but that's to be expected. Now, this sudden snow line here makes no sense because it wouldn't be like that. It would actually be a gradual disappearance over. There'd still be snow on the tops here, for example.
I do want to remind you to please keep your seat elbows clear from the aisle as the flight attendants will be coming through the cabin with galley cars shortly. Also, one more reminder to please refrain from congregating with the front galley where the flight deck door is located. Thank you.
Right, 50 miles to the descent and then we'll just be going straight down. Following that star and then following the constraints that I've loaded into the FMC. The FMC already wants the destination data, so we shall give it the destination data. Performance, next phase, approach, VOR28Z. Going into here, this is the METAR, and there's actually a nice decoder which summarises it into exactly what we need for this. So the pressure's 1032 millibars. Hectopascals, 10,000 pascals, 8 degrees Celsius, 8 degrees Celsius, not 2, and 020 at 13. So basically it's a crosswind. Because the runway heading is 100, which is 80 degrees to the right, and the other runway would be 110 degrees from the right. So either way we're going to be approaching with a crosswind. Let me just quickly flash up this thing again. So if I show the charts again, approach to runway 28, basically the wind is coming like that from the north. So this runway is going to be having a tailwind on crosswind component, and this runway is going to be having a headwind crosswind component, which is favourable, especially when it's 13 knots. So what we're going to do is fly down the VOR. Let's check localizer Z. Fly down the localizer, break off, and then fly a visual approach here. So probably somewhere around 5 or 4 DME. We turn left to about 20 degrees left of the runway heading, and then basically do what we do at Innsbruck on the extreme approach, except we'll be coming in over the sea rather than over the mountains. So I hope that makes sense. It's a pretty standard visual circle to land procedure. We just fly down the localizer to a certain altitude, which is normally probably about 1500 above ground, so a standard sort of jet circuit altitude. Circuit altitudes are about 1000 feet above ground level for jets. You add an extra 500. so you can get a longer final in and get more time to get stable and reduce the speeds and stuff like that. Or at least that's the case in the military. Probably not the same in civil aviation, but at Yeovilton, that's what they did. All the Hawks. So let's cancel that window there. Having a look now, we have got 117 miles to go, and they want to descend at 71. So there's about 40 miles left. We're going to now put in the airport data. Airline MJ, the runway landing distance available was 3,900. The runway slope, I'm going to just assume it's average down to 0. We need to get the meta, set the approach speed in knots. So if I quickly go and have a look at what's that going to be, performance, next phase, approach speed is 129, so let's put 129 in there. And we're going to get the meta, which we've already got. Runway heading is going to be the opposite of 286, so that's going to be add 180, or subtract 180, sorry, that's going to be 106. Runway altitude is more or less 0, hopefully. Remarks, circling runway 10. Pappy compulsoring for the circling approach by night. Let me just pop that up, actually, you can see it. So I'm reading this bit in red here. DME is required. Pappy OCS penetrated by terrain beyond 8,000 meters from threshold 10. Pappy not usable beyond 4 DME. So basically we can't circle further than 4 DME out. Circling for category D aircraft, which is basically large aircraft with a speed of more than 185 knots, only allowed during daylight. We're category C as an Airbus, so that's okay. Let's check the minimum. So the minimums for circling is 1360 feet above ground, so this means we've got about 14 feet. 1347 is the barometric. There. Progress, about 100 miles to go, so it's still good to keep looking at this. Circling not allowed north of the runway. Minimum altitudes are here. That tells us how low can we descend at any point further away. And this is the feet per minute on the glide slope. So the GS ground speed is going to be probably around 120, 130. So we're looking at 670 to 780 feet per minute. And a 4 mile final will give us about 1 minute 45 to get down there. These are all the waypoints required, so we're going to just use this as a circling approach. Circling for category C seems to be no problem, so we'll be doing that for sure. Let me actually put that there to save it. Leave flying localizer Z. Performance. Yeah, Borg Z, which is localizer basically. Radio navigation. Nothing set up in there, which is concerning. 108.6. Just quickly check what the ILS frequency is. And the course, the localizer course is 1.52 offset from runway centerline, so it's slightly to the left. It's still not a straight in approach. ILS Z uses 109.3. Localizer Z uses also 109.3, but without the glide path. And this is a 288. So I'd say localizer is almost better, but we're going to be using this, so it's 108.6 on a course of 288 degrees. So it's going to be there. Format around, that's fine. Okay, progress. 97 miles to go. Let's calculate this then, so this is about 15 feet above the ground, above sea level. We're going to be using reverse thrust. Let's calculate. So we can use low water brake, that will not be a problem. So I'm going to actually use that now. We'll still have another 900 meters to stop even if we don't. So I think we've just come over, then come on. This might be Switzerland right now. So we'll put it on the old Volanta. So let's change this to Volante, here we go. So follow the flight here. Whoa, where are we? Okay, there we go. Luzel coming in over, what is this? Lake Iseo on the left, and Como is over here on the right. So we're going to be flying kind of towards Milan, basically. Milan is straight ahead of us. So let me just get that out of the way. 15 minutes to go. Luzel 2 Bravo. Doesn't seem to exist, unfortunately, but oh well. So let's get rid of that window there. So the approach is basically all set up to go. So progress 89 miles, so we've got another 15 miles until it's up descent. We're going to use a 3-degree descent profile. And I'm talking in layman's, kind of very rough guesstimated altitudes. Because obviously it's not 15 until 70, it's 80. I always descend a couple of miles early because as you descend, wind changes and all sorts of things. Six miles to go. You can see the trim going off there. This bit here, that's just adjusting the height constantly. Bumpy. So we're kind of leaving the mountains now. You can see at the left here that we don't have any mountains, and on the right they will still be very much present. Which lake is this here? On the right, just a quick look. That is Brescia, I think. No, that's Lake Como. So Lake Como here, on the right, it's got 2 branches which basically connect up. We're on the right hand branch, which is where Como isn't. 82 miles, so I'm going to leave another 10 miles, so actually we've got plenty of time to descend down, so 3-degree descent from now. By the time the plane actually starts, the full 3-degree descent will be about 5 miles before. An extra 5 miles before.
From the flight deck, ladies and gentlemen,
Also gives us a decent time.
So
we've got 10 miles of level flight to reduce speed from 280 down.
Take care of as we prepare for approach. If you are up, once you return to your seat, we ask that you remain seated until the aircraft arrives safely at the gate. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for right.
So there should also be a localizer approach here, but it's not in there, so we'll just use the VOR, that's fine. It's the Zulu approach, which is normally the standard straight-in one. Genoa Street. Aerodrome elevation is 13. Okay, so 15 was pretty much on there. The final track is within 150 from runway centerline. Warning, final approach track 108 is offset 4.12 degrees from the runway centerline. It intersects the runway centerline after threshold 28. At 1400 meters from the threshold, the final track is within 150 meters from the runway centerline. Not bad. We don't need that though. We're going to be doing circling from runway 10 as mentioned. Let's just hope that we get below the mountains. So 4-mile final on a 3-degree glide path is about 1200 feet, so actually we want to descend to about 1200 feet while we go downwind, so that we are actually on path by the time we turn into final. plane do its thing, I suppose. We're going to have to break through these clouds at some point. Slight worry at Genoa, but looking at the metadata, we've got broken at 2,500, so as long as we're below 2,500 we should be fine. The visibility is 6 kilometres, but again, we're not going to be leaving a 4 kilometre range of the airport because we can't get to Shapapi. So if the visual approach doesn't work, then we will spin around and go back for the localizer ILS approach, or just commit to the VOR, depending on the wind. It does look like the winds are loft, or at least from the right direction. I'm going to quick look at the charts in the flight plan. So we should have some wind charts basically in here. So these are the wind charts. This is at some altitude, I'm not sure what. This is flight level 240, which we don't need. That's flight level 300, flight 40. So let's take these at best. So the wind is basically prevailing from the west, but because of the mountains, it spins around like Genoa. No slot time yet allocated. Well, that's just rude. The airport's closed, but we can ignore that. AIP and AD2. Takeoff stands closed. IKEA signals provided. Meters communications failure, service change for coolant modified. Exit pushback unserviceable. NDB unserviceable. NDB unserviceable, so there's nothing where we are. Happy right is unserviceable. Runway centerline lights unserviceable. I'm sure they will be turned on though, because this is the thing. ILS-28 is not available. That's fine. We're not using ILS-28, we're using VOR for this exact reason. The Nazi has 210 degrees at 5 knots. Anything about the Nazi we need to take into account. De-icing, pushback, taxi. It's available. So the COD locator is not available. Military zone 8. Looks like there's a lot to go on. Lots going on there now. DNF here, no reason signal. Right, there we go, coming down. You can see we're actually using the high LOD version of the Google Maps placement using the Bing data that's currently being provided to Bing Maps rather than what was in the sim, as the data is a few years old. Looks like a high LOD actually works quite well. It's very high resolution down there. So flying straight down towards it. Let's get the landing system up 108.6, and it's 288 is the degrees of landing. I think the runway is actually 285. Who knows? There's the rain clouds over Genoa, which is exactly the problem about visibility potentially. So visibility may be a problem, but let me just check the circling requirements. Within 4 nautical miles of the DME. So as long as we're in 4 nautical miles of 108.6, then we are all good. So we'll stick up there. There it is, Sestri. Just need to stay near to that, basically. That's fine. General remarks. The visual approach chart. What does it say? So there is a tower at 300 feet above ground level, about 2 miles from the runway threshold, that we'll need to avoid. So as long as we're not flying a super low approach, that won't be a problem. And then other than that, there's a few towers to the west which are no factor if we're at the right correct altitude. There's no lead-in lights and the visual cues will be basically the coastline. If we follow the coastline, we'll end up slap bang on the airport. Grand. So if you're wondering what I was looking at for that, that was this bit here. So this is our 309 feet tower, 300 feet above ground. These are the towers to the east of the airport, which are no factor. And then we've got this here. This is more for visual flight. So we're basically going to be coming in here and then trying to stay within this radius of Genoa. We're going to fly a DMER by the looks of it. Good though. So this is just a kind of boring bit of the approach where nothing much happens, but we're below 11,000, about to enter some clouds, so it could get bumpy, so seatbelt signs on. I'm going to put the landing lights out and not turn them on yet. That's it. That's what it says. Still no agency online. No, we've got landing radar in Germany, not that that helps us. So we're about to descend into the clouds. I'm expecting IFR conditions, but it looks like below there is still quite good visibility, so hopefully the visibility is properly modelled. LIMC, or that's only ground. So that's what to do over here in Genoa. If it was Milan approach, it might have been potentially within the radius of I highly doubt it. So below 10,000 now, so landing lights on. Seatbelt signs ready on. Turn off lights as well. Speed down is reduced down to 260, which is why we've built in that extra a few miles of reduced speed there. I'm actually going to fly directly to Charlie Delta 28 said. Yes, the speed limit has been exceeded. That was me. Simulator. Turn onto the DMER because it would better for the overall approach. We're only allowed down 60,500, so we're just going to hold that right now. There's the left turn. And we're in the cloud, so you can't see anything. It's quite a light cloud though, so I'll say the visibility is not too bad. Big images, not too bad actually. Underneath there you can see a ravine or some road. Now you can see the turbulence starting to have an effect now. So at some point we should level the wings off and start the right DME arc, so it looks like that's that point there. Just descending down, so the visibility is not terrible. So we now need to descend into the QNH, so that's going to basically, that's another reason why I built 10 miles. We need to stay on this DME arc above 6,500. You can see why. Hopefully we stay above these mountains. If you crash into a mountain, obviously this is an absolute waste of time, but hopefully we won't. 7,000 feet is 2,000 metres, and I don't think the mountains are at all. Or are they? We're anyway following the chart, and we're above the prescribed altitude, so this should be fine. Maybe it was a good idea not to change off the course then after all. Could have been a bit disastrous. So we're coming in over these kind of Riviera mountains of Italy, Italian Riviera. Bit of bad Bing scenery there. It's not what I want to see. So 7,000, we've got 13 miles to go along this, so I'm just going to keep at 7,000 until the last minute really. 27 miles from Sestri, which is the NDB responsible for us, so let's just have a look at the minimum safe altitude. Minimum safe is 8,300 at that distance, so maybe we should go a little bit higher. It's fine. It's fine. Minimum sector altitude. Okay, that's just something else. So Tiglo. Tiglo, where's Tiglo? Oh, that's the wrong bit. Anyway. Just follow this DME arc around basically.
2,500.
Terrain warning there. The clouds are broken at 2,500 above sea level, so above ground level, which is basically sea level, at least at this area. So that could get spicy. Just keeping an eye on the radar altitude here. Okay, we just came over the top of the mountain. Got close to 1,000, but it's not opened up. It's probably a huge problem, but we're going to pretend it's not. Okay, now we're off radar altitude, so that means we can come over the mountain. We're on a 27 DME arc. 6 miles to go, let's descend down the last 500 feet. I'm going to engage the approach mode. So it's going to be quite a slow descent rate because it's going to want to go 210 miles or so. There's no point looking out the window because there's nothing to see. The terrain would be a nice feature to have right now, but we don't have it. However, the radar altitude is not going off, it's just turned on again. There's going to be a mountain ahead. It's just disappeared again, so we've come over the top of that little mountain now. Okay, 27 Bravo is now 2 miles away and we're 300 above. Now we need to descend down to 5,000 by the next point here. Delete that discontinuity now. Donk. And that should now get a nice approach path once it's drawn in. So Tiglo to CD, which is at 5,000. We can't descend below 6,500 until after the 27 Bravo point, which is in 0.1 miles. So we've got 10 miles to go, but we've got 1,500 to descend, so I'm going to slowly do that at an open descent speed again. 1 mile to the next waypoint, and there we go, it's all linked up now, so we've got the approach fully kind of coordinated. I'm going to keep the minimum clean speed until the break-off point, that's where I'm going to sort of configure the aircraft for the full approach. We'll break off at 4 DME, which will hopefully be very soon. So turning onto the final approach path now, we still don't have the localizer. But again, we're using the RNAV at the moment, so it's okay. Here comes 5,000 feet, we're over the sea now, so no more worries about the mountains. Now let's have a look at the wind. It is now pretty much facing backwards, so yeah, the circling approach would be a fair shout. If you stay above 5,000 until this point here, you can see there's some mountains here that we're probably going to have to come over, so we're going to stay above it for that. So this approach is basically going to be kind of boring, and then it's suddenly going to get very spicy in the last seconds. Visibility wise, looking okay. I can see that as we descend it's going to get better. We're still in the cloud layer right now, so that's to be expected. I'm going to descend on to 1700, and that's where I'm going to turn left. Flaps 1 going in now, bring us down to slat speed of 190 knots, 189 knots. Performance wise, this is all good. Still can't quite see anything, but again, that's what makes these visual approaches fun, right? Panic. Good joke, good joke. Okay, turning right onto the localizer track now. That means we can descend now down to 3,500, so there's 3,500. Let's do that down like this. It's probably going to be 3 degrees. And we're basically just going to keep going down until I can see the sea. Which I low-key kind of can. No, that's the window. I can see the window, that's funny. There you go, sun's breaking through the clouds. Bit of reflection there from the sea. So hopefully by the time we get below 3,000 feet we'll actually have a good amount of visibility. We're looking for 8 kilometers or more. That's 6 kilometers is what was in the metadata, which is about 4 miles. We're still 15 miles out, so no panic just yet. 3,500. There's the sea. I've got the coastline as well. That is all good. Bit of rain here. You can see that starting to form on the wind screen now. Yeah, we're just coming in below the cloud layer now. So we're still in it a little bit, but not too much anymore. The altimeter's all set. Landing lights are on, seatbelt signs are on. Let's call the cabin in. We are in approach mode. VAP is 130. We're still using auto brake low. And we're going to keep flying down this. 2420 is the next one, so I'm going to put 25 as the next altitude to descend to. It's 1,000 feet over 3 miles, so about that much. Now the glide path according to the charts is 3.17, so that's more like 3.2. There we go. So you can see the runway there. There's the runway. So runway's in sight, which means we have got a 10-mile visibility range to the airport, so this is plenty for the visual approach. Once we descend below 2,400 we should be on track to do our break-off. We're going to program 1,700 and fly the circuit at that altitude, and then descend down as we come around the corner. You can see what they mean by the approach path is 4 degrees offset to the runway centre line. But that's fine.
2,500.
This time it really means it. We're 2,500 above the sea, so we can't really go any further down. So that's a fair shout. Okay, there we go, keep it going down. We're going to go down to 1,700, and at 1,700 we're going to break off. Put flaps 2 in and use 160. Genoa traffic, Alpine 56 Golf on the localizer 28, circle to land 10, breaking off. Because we're going to break off round about now. Let's go to 250. 30 degrees to the left, and we're basically just going to keep this in sight the whole time. Getting down to 3,000 feet. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 160 knots. And I'm going to hold 1700 for the approach. Let's fly this for about 20 seconds. So I've just started the timer there. Flaps free. Maybe a bit more than 20 seconds. I'm going to keep flying until this says 4.0 DME. Once it says more, that's when I'm going to cancel it. We're going to kind of use a 4 DME arc. So we're going to get closer first, and then we're going to get further away. That's it down to 1400. It says 3.8 now. 3.7. 3.6. It's going to be kind of like a teardrop. We're going to come around there. I'm going to aim for that harbour point now, actually. 3.5. 3.4. That was 1 minute.
100 above.
Okay, we're still above minimum altitude, so that's okay. 3.4. 3.4. 3.3. Okay, let's go to 280 again. It's going to be about a 3 mile arc from the airport. Basic skills, you know, flying a circuit. That's why you learn it. So you can still fly circuits even in jetliners. There's the runway in sight. 2.9 miles. The VOR is now directly to my right, so it's going to start increasing. You can see the arrow here, the radius, going off to the right. Gears coming down and the flaps are going to go to full. Fully configured. We're abeam the threshold now. I'm going to fly out to 4 DME and then I'm going to turn around and come back. Free DME. Let's just not go into this cloud here. .0 3.1 So 3 miles is about 900 feet on a 3 degree glide path, so I'm going to start descending now using a gentle approach at first.
Minimum.
Continue. Basically committed myself to a landing at this point. There's the runway there. I can't see the Papa yet. But I know I'm at 3 miles, so I need to be a bit lower. Now that altitude has now gone orange to just tell us we're basically below minimum safe. Below the minimum descent altitude. Good. Flaps full, spoilers on, cabin crew's warned. There's the Papa lights coming into sight. There we go, so we're aiming for, was it 600 feet per minute, 700 feet per minute, something like that. I'm going to aim for this corner of this sort of shipping port here. There we go, a bit low, pulling back up. And the tower is somewhere over here. These hills, I think. Pulled up a bit too much by the looks of it. Nope, still good.
500.
Wind's coming from the left at 020 as predicted, so it's a kind of crosswind actually. Runway's nice and long though, so there should be no problem.
400. 300.
Aiming now at the blocks.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Heavy. Flared way too late. Oh well. It's a landing. ATS decel. 60 reverses off. I'll take the next exit manual. Let's take a stand with a jetway. Welcome to Genoa. Typical Microsoft Flight Simulator expects you to park in the most bizarre ways. I'm going to go in here along this line. Okay, parking brake. Engines off. Jetway, power catering baggage, power catering baggage. No jetway. Okay, no jetway. Didn't park in the right spot then. And the plane's just turned itself off, which is fine. Not that I bothered. Landing rate then, what was it? Because it was a tough one. 304 feet per minute. Slam it down basically. And the final approach path, let's have a look. Let's change the window, we're going to Volanta. You can see there, quite a short final approach. But basically using that kind of harbour bit as a reference point. There we go. Right, let's do that again some other time, but with a better landing. But you can see here, this is where we turned left, this is where we turned onto downwind, and then we turned base and final. Rather nice. And this was our DME arc. Departure from Innsbruck. Straight out, right turn almost immediately following